Ladies and gentlemen, I take pride in introducing the greatest show on earth.
Hi, everybody. This is Scott Gordon, and welcome to the Uncle Floyd podcast number 71. Right now, it's about 4:30 in the afternoon on Friday, May 1st, 2026. And I'm sitting here with a bunch of questions from you guys that I'm going to be able to answer in a few moments. But, as we always do, you can get a question into us for next week. Just email it to ufpodcast@sge-inc.com. That's ufpodcast@sge-inc.com. And I'll be glad to answer your question. So let's listen to the rest of the Uncle Floyd Show theme by the Vivino Brothers Band with Uncle Floyd on piano. And we'll get right to the stuff in about 20 seconds. And welcome to podcast number 71. We got some questions from you guys, and we're going to have some music. I'll play a song by Floyd later, and some other thing we're going to put in there. So here we go. This is from Susie Tannenbaum. Judging from the Stage It Show and the podcast, you're very good at keeping track of dates and numbers. With that in mind, about how many characters did you come up with over the years on the Uncle Floyd Show? Last count, Susie, Diane and I counted it to be about 47 different characters that I did on the show. Which ones did you especially enjoy doing? Well, Dr. What's the Matter? I love doing him. Probably, I would say, Chuck Little Hat, yeah, and Mr. Babble. Those were my favorites. Susie also asks, on weeks when Floyd was unable to do the podcast, you interviewed members of the cast. Is there any chance you'll be doing more reminiscing with them on future podcasts? Sure. It's just a matter of getting us together, either over the phone or here in the studio. I'd love to have them here in the studio. She'd also be interested to hear me interview Jeff Friedman or do a talk with Jeff. Sure, anytime Jeff would like to do it, he can come up here, or we can do it on the phone. That's possible. From Arthur Ford. I know that in its last years, the Uncle Floyd Show was a talk show or Floyd visiting different towns. But at some point somewhere, there was a final episode of the full cast show, as most of us know it. My questions? When was this? Where did it air? Did you guys know it would be the last? If so, was there an on-air acknowledgement that the show was ending or changing? Or was it just done as another show? Arthur, several times we did changes with the show, moving to different stations, moving to different locations. The final show with the full cast was done in 1998 out of the Cablevision studio in Oakland, New Jersey on Potash Drive. The last show, we had a very special guest who did most of the show with us, was Marky Ramone and his band. And one of these days I'll air that on the Stage It Show. That you can find at theunclefloydshow.tv. Every Tuesday night at 8, we have a date, and we get together and we show old clips and talk about it live. And we have a chat group where you can chat and ask questions, and I'll answer them there. Was there an on-air acknowledgement that the show was ending or changing, or was it just done as another show? That was the question. We always acknowledged that there was going to be a change. If we had any information, we would hint at it. We wouldn't plug another station, like we wouldn't mention New Jersey network on CTN or anything like that. Arthur also says, I remember when Channel 68 between WHT and it being sold to the Home Shopping Club became U68, showing mostly music videos with Floyd as a newscaster. It was good to see Floyd, but I remember feeling like it wasn't the best use of his talent, and he didn't seem to me like he was loving doing it. I know it gave me hope that the show might return to Channel 68 when it went off NJN, which obviously didn't happen. If you recall, how did Floyd land the newscaster position? What did he think of doing it? Were there any thoughts of the show returning if the station remained as U68? There's always a thought of going any place when we were doing the show. But Floyd did that show basically because the CTN and the NJN were not making enough money for him. And that way he could sell ads, he could sell sponsorships and get sponsors and get the commission or the break, whatever he was getting on selling the ads, and keeping it going. And that's what he did. From Michael Lepowski, I know Jonathan Frid from Dark Shadows. He mentioned on the air at an NJN telethon that he would have loved to be on the Uncle Floyd show. Did any of you meet him and discuss this? Interesting, Michael. I was an adjunct member of the Collinsport Players, which was the group who did fan drama, fan sketches of the Dark Shadows show at the Dark Shadows conventions. And I knew Jonathan well. And all it was the fact that we could never get the timing together with his other projects for him to come down and do the Uncle Floyd show. We did it early in the morning and through till 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and he was doing auditions or other shows or traveling around, and he would have had to come to New Jersey from where he lived. And it just did not come together, unfortunately. It would have been a lot of fun to do it with him. Had Jonathan Frid on Mr. Spooky. From Mike Opp 1960. Mike, put in your full name next time, please, at the bottom. Did the person appearing in a skit have responsibility for writing their parts? Was all of Chuck Little Hat written by you? Or the Willie Half Nelson songs written by Muggsy? Muggsy did write all his songs. Every once in a while, one of us would come up with an idea, with a basic idea for a song, and Muggsy would rewrite it for whichever one of the characters, Peter Punk or Willie Half Nelson or anything like that. You know, he would do his song. I would come up with Chuck Little Hat concepts, and a lot of the stuff was discussed. Most of the stuff that I did was discussed with Floyd, and we just did it that way. You know, we would sit down and discuss it. A lot of times, while the music was playing on the Italian-American Serenade or Garage Sale Music or whatever radio show we were doing, and it would come about that way. That's the way things were written. I know Artie wrote most of his own stuff, and so did Charlie. And of course, there were suggestions, there was ideas thrown back and forth. It was a group effort. From Stephen Gallo in Brooklyn, I was wondering if any local sports figures ever appeared on the Uncle Floyd show. Yes, absolutely. I'll just name two. We'll go baseball and football. Joe Pepitone appeared on the show. He did a nice talk with a nice little interview with Floyd. And Doug Van Horn from the Giants. Doug Van Horn, actually, during a sketch, he wanted to do a comedy sketch. And during the sketch, we had a physical thing worked out between him and me. And being a football player and not used to being a stunt person or doing stunt work, he broke 3 of my ribs during the sketch. That was on take 3. We used take 5. I did 2 takes with 3 broken ribs. Thank you, Doug Van Horn. He was a real nice guy, really apologetic. He did not mean to connect, but it happened. Really nice letter from Mordecai Twerksky. He has a lot of good memories of the show and the radio shows and everything else. He says, this is with appreciation and not intended for broadcast, but he had an interesting question. One specific memory has stayed with me for years, an episode featuring either Chubby Checker or Fats Domino. It was Chubby Checker, where the sustained laughter and hilarity were simply unforgettable. I realize memory can blur details over time, but I have often wondered whether you might recall that episode. If so, I'd love to know your recollection of it and whether there were any plans to revisit or rebroadcast it on your Tuesday show. Yeah, a couple years ago, I actually rebroadcast the segments with Chubby Checker. I may do it again, okay? I may do a special where we have a lot of the stars who visited the show. I've done that in the past. Very interesting thing about that episode. Chubby was there, and there was a breakdown in the equipment. And we couldn't tape right away. The station was in a very bad neighborhood. 980 West Market Street, which is the corner of Central Avenue. At that time, in the 1980s in Newark, that was kind of rough. There was a park across the street where in the wintertime they would have a big barrel with a fire in it with a bunch of people gathering around it. And a little bit further on, there was a real dive bar. I mean, a real dive bar. Chubby decided he was going to go out and have a drink. And he went to the dive bar. We said, Chubby, what are you going there for? He says, hey, these are my people. And he went over to the dive bar and he had a few drinks. And one of the guys went out to get him and brought him back when we were ready to do the show. And we had a heck of a nice time. He was a little bit lubricated when we did that sketch. So, Mordecai Twerksky, I think it's Twerksky in Concord, New Hampshire. I hope I pronounced that right, Mordecai. I really do. You know, we've been doing themes on this show, and I'd like to dump in a theme right now, one of the themes from the show. In between, with variations that we did just before syndication on WWHT, we had Swinging Down the Lane, which we did on WBTB. When we went to WTVG, we had the second version of Swinging Down the Lane, which I think I played last week. We didn't like that much. It wasn't as good as the first version, which was lost. It was the 78 that was broken. And eventually I brought in an album of mine, which was Tadpoles by the Bonzo Dog Band. And on that was something that we came up with and used for the theme, where Floyd is unloading his car in the front of the station and bringing junk in. And that song was Dr. Jazz. And here it is right now. Okay, now back to the questions. From Matthew D. Lorenzo in New York City. As the Uncle Floyd Show expanded beyond its original local broadcast roots and began reaching viewers across different parts of New Jersey and even into other markets, did you ever hear from audiences who seemed surprised by the show's very North Jersey, New York style of humor? Did that wider exposure change anything about how the show was presented? And can you give examples of how you all did this? There were a couple of comments about it, most notably by Phoenix, Arizona. The station manager in Phoenix, Arizona, during the first show, which was an Eddie Slabo sketch that they got, stopped the show and said, "Nope, this is the most ridiculous and the stupidest thing I've ever seen on television. I am highly embarrassed by showing you this, and you will never see another episode here in Phoenix." And he took the show off the air and went into a copy of a standard sitcom that was syndicated and never showed the show again. Floyd's comment when he was told that this happened was, it's Phoenix. What do you expect? They're out in the desert. Their brains are fried. So it never changed us. It never changed what we did. We did what we did. The syndicators wanted us to tone it down a little bit, but we never did. And that's probably one of the reasons why syndication ended. From Joe Brea. We talked about his band being on the show last week. We didn't mention the name of it. It was The Go. It was THE and GO with an exclamation point, and GO in both caps. He says, a band member friend hired Floyd to entertain at his wedding party, and while booking the gig, he was surprised to learn that he was speaking to David Byrd. Not only that, but David still had the information, the names and phone numbers, from our appearances years before. Yep, that's the way David is. David has great records of everything that he's done with the show. And he remembered you, and I bet he still has your phone number, Joe. David is just that way. From Matt DiLorenzo in New York City. How has revisiting these old episodes changed the way you think about the original production, especially now that modern audiences see them with fresh eyes? It's really interesting, Matthew. We never expected the material to last. We never thought it would last and be still funny in the future. There's a lot of stuff that isn't. For some strange reason, our stuff still carries, especially the very common stuff. And once you get to know the characters, this stuff is hysterical. And it just amazes me, and it amazed Floyd, that in this day, people still want to see the show, want to see us, and want to get a good laugh out of what we used to do. From Tim Ramsdell in Spring Lake Heights, New Jersey. I was able to ask Floyd this question on the last podcast he was able to do. Now I'd like to ask you the same question. If you could have 5 people from history for dinner, who would it be? Very interesting question. I had to give this one a lot of thought, Tim. And I came up with 2 lists of people. People that I've known personally and people older that I've never met or from way back in history that I would like to sit down and talk with. Of the people I have known would be Les Paul, great guitarist and inventor, Lou Pallo, a great friend, another great guitarist, and Les Paul's secondary guitarist for many years, Al Caiola, a great guitarist from the past who was known for a lot of songs that you've heard. He's played a lot, and maybe I'll play some of his stuff sometime. Joe Morello, a great, great drummer who I had the pleasure of working with. He was the drummer for Take 5 with Dave Brubeck. And Don Farnese, a friend of mine who was related to the Farnese Bakeries in Wayne, and he was an ex-professional wrestler and a great bass player. And I would love to have dinner and a great jam session with those guys. Now, as far as historical people, it would be Thomas Edison, Les Paul, Philo Farnsworth, who basically invented the system of television that we watch, Edward Howard Armstrong, the inventor of FM radio, and Nikola Tesla, another great inventor who I'd love to see sit down and have a discussion with Thomas Edison, because those 2 guys hated each other and were constantly at each other's throats with lawsuits and everything else, and I'd love to just sit down and talk with them. From R.T. Bucky Blair, my question for you is, what are some of your favorite record albums or 45s of all time that were a huge influence on you? Wow. All right, this is going off the top of my head, Bucky. I was a folkie. That's when I started music. I was a folkie. Peter, Paul, and Mary, definitely. Peter, Paul, and Mary from their early days. Then I would have to say Rubber Soul by the Beatles, Days of Future Past by the Moody Blues, Turn of the Cards by Renaissance. My personal collection is Command records. All the stuff by Enoch Light and the Light Brigade. All the stuff that's on the Command records, including the classical music that's on there from the Cincinnati Philharmonic, and anything that was done by Edgar Varese. Musique concrète. Very interesting stuff. From Kevin Dillon. Based on your personal and professional audio experience, what was your opinion of 8-track tapes? Oh boy. I always found it interesting how they were popular for such a short time. What did you think of them, and why do you think they became so unpopular so quickly? Well, you couldn't program them the same way that you would program a regular album because you had the 4 different segments. You had to recut the album. The artists didn't like them because they programmed their albums to have a certain flow, and they would change that for the 8-track tape. Plus the fact those suckers jammed. And if you didn't know the trick how to unjam an 8-track tape, you were out of luck. You spent $6 on an 8-track tape and had to throw it out. I thought a better format was the L cassette. Even better than the regular cassette, they had a thing called an L cassette, which was 1/4-inch tape rather than 1/8-inch tape. It was a higher fidelity. It ran at a faster speed. It was a bit larger. Look it up on the internet. Check out the L cassette on the internet. I think you'll find it's a little bit different. And finally, our last question of the day from Dennis DeLeo. Hey, Scott, you've met many celebrities courtesy of the Uncle Floyd Show, but what were some of the earliest brushes with fame that you've had as a kid outside of Les Paul, either actors or comedians that you might have met as a kid? How old were you at the time? Did they impress you in any way to get into showbiz? Well, Al Caiola lived in Oradell, New Jersey, where I lived until I was 13 years old, before we moved to Mahwah, and I met Les Paul. He was a great guitarist. My first brush with celebrity, let's see. I think I was about 7 years old. I'm not sure. There was a fire in Rutherford, and a fireman was killed. One of the things that was done is my father was a Bergen County police officer at the time, so it had to be after 1956. So it was 1957, 58, 59, sometime in there. So that would have made me 8, 9, or 10 years old. They had a softball game. It was the Bergen County Police Department, which my father was a member of, against the Rutherford Fire Department to raise money for the family of this firefighter that was killed in the fire. Somehow, WNEW AM heard about it, and they decided that they were going to bring a show over at the same time, to have a show after this baseball game, to drive more people in, to bring more money in. William B. Williams was the MC, and the orchestra was the Count Basie Orchestra on a platform in the middle of this field along Route 17 in Rutherford. And they had several different people come and sing. They had singers. Tony Bennett was a singer. This'll help you figure out the year. Phil Foster came out, and he said, "I'd like to sing my new song that I just recorded. And I want to sing it for you people right now, and it's a very important song, and you should go out and get it and buy it. And the name of the song is Keep the Dodgers in Brooklyn." And that was Phil Foster. And then Buddy Hackett came out. He did a quick, what I would call a quick set. He told a bunch of jokes. And afterwards, my father took me up, and I got to meet all these people and shake their hands. And I actually talked to Buddy Hackett, and Buddy Hackett was known for not working particularly clean in the nightclubs, which I knew, so I was old enough to understand that. I said to him, "Mr. Hackett, you want to hear a dirty joke?" And he looked at me and goes, "Sure, kid, what?" I said, "The white horse fell in the mud puddle." He said, "Oh boy, that's great. Do another one, kid, do another one." I said, "I'll tell you a clean one." He said, "What's that?" I said, "He fell in the lake and got washed off." Well, Buddy Hackett said, Kid, you tell jokes good. Keep telling jokes. Keep telling jokes. And here I am today. So thank you, Mr. Hackett. Mr. Hackett was Buddy Hackett was my inspiration, the way Les Paul was my inspiration with guitar. So that's it. And we have one more thing to go today. And I want to remind you, if you want to get a question into the show, to this show, all you have to do is email it to ufpodcast@sge-inc.com. That's ufpodcast@sge-inc.com. And I'll be glad to do it here. I'll answer your questions just like I did all these. If you want to join us every Tuesday night at 8, we have a date with This Was the Uncle Floyd Show. And you can get to that by going theunclefloydshow.tv. Theunclefloydshow.tv will take you right there. And it's Tuesday night at 8. It's not repeated. It's not archived. If you want to see it, you got to come and see it. That's just the way that's the way Floyd liked it, and that's the way I'm going to keep doing it. So again, Floyd always says, you, the audience, are the most important thing to any show. This show, any show you see, without an audience, there would be no show. We need you. Please tell your friends, tell them to come and listen to this podcast with us and have a great time. Have a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun here all the time. And right now, I'm going to play a song by Uncle Floyd, and this one you've heard 150 times at least, but this is just him at the piano, doing it the way he does it best when he does it in front of a small audience. Take it away, Floyd.
I'm my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. It sounds funny, I know, but it really is so. Yes, I'm my own grandpa. Many, many years ago when I was 23, I was married to a widow who was pretty as could be. This widow had a grown-up daughter who had hair of red. My father fell in love with her and soon they two were wed. This made my dad my son-in-law and changed my very life. For my daughter was my mother 'cause she was my father's wife. To complicate the matter, even though it brought me joy, I soon became the father of a bouncing baby boy. My little baby then became a brother-in-law to dad, and soon became my uncle, though it made me very sad. For if he was my uncle, then that also made him brother of the widow's grown-up daughter, who of course was my stepmother. I'm my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. It sounds funny, I know, but it really is so. Yes, I'm my own grandpa. Father's wife then had a son who kept them on the run, and he became my grandchild 'cause he was my daughter's son. My wife is now my mother's mother, and it makes me blue, because although she is my wife, she's my grandmother too. If my wife is my grandmother, then I'm her grandchild, and every time I think of it, it nearly drives me wild. For now I have become the strangest case you ever saw. As husband of my grandmother, I am my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. It sounds funny, I know, but it really is so. Yes, I'm my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. It sounds funny, I know, but it really is so. Yes, I'm my own grandpa.
This program was produced in the studios of Scott Gordon Enterprises, Incorporated in Paramus, New Jersey.